Happy Wednesday, everybody. I hope everyone is well today and having a great day. It's just getting light outside right now. It's a little dark, a little light, but the sun is going to shine today. And if you want to, today can be a great day. In fact, it can be a great day whether the sun is shining or not, just because we know the Lord Jesus Christ. So why don't you just make up in your mind that you're going to have a wonderful day today, and I encourage you to start your day with the Lord. Now, I have to remind you that we are all one day closer to the end of this pandemic, and we are going to make it through this thing together. So keep holding on. Well, today is grass cutting day up here at the church. You know, it doesn't seem like we should be cutting the grass yet because it's been a little colder than usual. But this is the third week already that I'm mowing the lawn up here at the church. Now, I could be all droopy about having to cut the grass, but I think it's all a matter of perspective. I kind of look forward to it. First, I'm still able to do it. I'm able to walk around and accomplish that, so that's a great thing. And second, I get to be outside. I don't have to stay cooped up here in the office all day, but I get to spend some time outside, so that's a great deal. Third, I get to listen to either some good preaching while I'm mowing or a podcast where I'm learning something, so that's wonderful. And so the way I look at it, I'm coming out ahead of the whole deal. And not to mention that I get blessed for working for the Lord because this is His property, it's His house, and there's a blessing that comes from doing things for the Lord. There's a blessing from working in His kingdom no matter what area of service you're involved with. So my Bible reading and devotion time today was from the book of Mark, chapter number 2. And again, in this chapter, we see the fast-paced nature of Mark's gospel. He just goes from one story to the next, it seems, in a very quick pace. This chapter contains 4 short sections. The first section is verses 1 through 12, and there is the story of the paralyzed man being healed. In the second section, verses 13 to 17, it covers the calling of the disciple by the name of Levi or Matthew. The third section, verses 18 to 22, deals with a question about fasting, and the final section, verses 23 to 28, talks about the Sabbath day. Now, this chapter marks the beginning of some controversies that Jesus has with the religious leaders of his day, and it will climax with the first attempt to take his life in the next chapter of Mark, chapter 3. In all of these little stories here in Mark 2, Jesus does something to upset the religious leaders of his day. He does something not according to the traditions of the day, if you will. He is demonstrating that they have taken their traditions more serious than the condition of their hearts. The religion became more important than the relationship. And that's a pretty good lesson right there for us to learn today. We must never let the outward trappings of religion or what we do become more important than our relationship with the Lord Jesus. Our relationship is the time that we spend with the Lord, just being with Him. You know, anything we do for the Lord can become something of no value if it's done with the wrong heart. All of our spiritual disciplines, all of our spiritual formation efforts, Bible reading, prayer, fasting, coming to church, whatever it is, you name it, it all can become something that we just check off our list of spirituality and accomplish nothing of value to us. But on the other hand, if we're doing these things just to spend time with the Lord, just to be with the Lord, they can become what sustains us and helps us grow. So it's important that we learn that lesson. So in this first section of Mark chapter 2, I'll go through these sections real quick. Mark 2, the first 12 verses, Jesus demonstrates his authority to forgive sins by healing the paralyzed man that was let down through the roof because there was no room for them in the house. They brought this paralyzed man. His 4 friends brought this paralyzed man. They tried to get in the house to see Jesus, but there's no room. It's packed out right up to the door. The windows are full. People probably looking in from the outside. And so there was no access to Jesus. There was no room for them in the house. But they didn't let that stop them. And there's a great lesson here to learn, is that don't let anything keep you from getting to Jesus. The house was full, so they found another way. They went up on the roof and began to tear up the roof. And they let this paralyzed man down through the roof to where Jesus was. Can I tell you, there is always a way to get to Jesus. There may be a hindrance. There may be something that's blocking the only way that we see right up front. But I want to tell you, there's always a way to get to Jesus. So don't stop short of going all the way to touching the Lord Jesus. In the second section, Mark chapter 2, verses 13 to 17, Jesus calls Levi, or Matthew, to be a disciple. This is a great little story because Matthew was a Levite. And for some reason, we don't know what the reason is. We can only imagine what it might be. But for some reason, he didn't choose to pursue a religious vocation. Or he didn't maybe make the cut. No rabbi chose him to be one of his students. And so he kind of gets left out, or he chooses on his own not to pursue religious things like the rest of his tribe did. The tribe of Levites were always involved around religious things. So he's already a disappointment in his life, and he becomes a further disappointment by becoming a tax collector. Tax collectors were hated. So he's already a disappointment, and he adds even more to the disappointment of his life, and he becomes a tax collector. But what a great outcome that Jesus would stop by and he would see the value of Matthew's life, where all the other rabbis kind of walked by Matthew and looked at him and said, no, he's not worth anything. I don't think I'm going to call him to be one of my followers. Here comes Jesus, and Jesus stops by and he sees this great value in Matthew's life, and he calls him to follow. In effect, Jesus says, I'll let you become one of my students. And the lesson here is don't give up on what God has called you to do. God is not scared off by your past. He can make you what you need to be to accomplish his purpose in the kingdom. From fishermen to tax collectors, sometimes God chooses the weak and lowly things of the world to accomplish his purpose. So don't give up. The third controversy between Jesus and the religious crowd deals with fasting in verses 18 to 22. And the religious bunch wants to know why Jesus' disciples weren't fasting like they were. And this is proof that their fasting wasn't accomplishing anything besides calorie regulation. They were just on a diet. You see, when you fast, you're not worried about what anybody else is doing. You're not fasting to be seen of men. And so it had no spiritual effect for them. And Jesus said, while I'm here in the flesh with them, there's no need for them to fast because we're having a party. We're having a celebration. There's going to come a time when I'm not going to be here. And when I'm gone, they're going to fast. And the lesson here is we are not fasting to get something from God. We are not fasting to make him do what we want him to do. We're not fasting to make him hear our voice, but we fast to hear his voice, and we fast to find out what he wants to do and to get in line with that. And then this final section of the chapter of Mark chapter 2, verses 23 to 28, is a discussion on the Sabbath. Now, the religious bunch, again, they are ticked off that the disciples were not keeping all the rules they had in place for the Sabbath. Not the biblical rules, but the extra things they had put in place. There were so many rules that they had put in place for the Sabbath. It would astound you, all of the rules, the things they could not do on the Sabbath day. But Jesus basically tells them, I'm the Lord of the Sabbath. The Sabbath, he says, was made for man. Man was not made for the Sabbath, but the Sabbath was made for man. It was made for man to be able to rest and to delight in me. It was not made for you to keep a bunch of rules and to take the delight out of the Sabbath practice, but the practice of Sabbath should be where you find delight in your Creator and the things that he has created. So that's a great lesson, that the Sabbath was made for man. If you keep this principle of rest and you apply this principle of rest to your life and finding delight in your Creator and the things that he has created for us, it is going to be a blessing to your life. So have a great day, everybody.